Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Jaya
Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you for being here on this special Friday night. Today we'll be speaking on verse number from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, verse number 24. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So maybe we can say it in response after me. Yonta
Yonta
Shuko
Sukho
Nita
Nita
Naramas.
Ramas.
Yonta Shuko Nita Naramas.
Yonta Sukho Naramas.
Tatanta
Tata
Jyotir
Jyotir
Evaya.
Evaya.
Tatanta Jyotir Evaya.
Tata Jyotir Evaya.
Sha Yogi
Yogi
Brahma Nirvana. Sa Yogi Brahma Nirvana. Brahma Bhuto Digachati. Brahma Bhuto Digachati. Yona Shuko Nitaramas. Satanta Jyotirevaya. Sayogi Brahma Nirvana. Brahma Bhuto Digachati. Yonta Shuko Nitaramas. Tatanta Jyotirevacha. Chayogi Brahma Nirvana. Brahma Bhuto Digachati. Yeah. One who. Antaha Shuka.
Are we not doing that? Hold on, we're not trying it out.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
You go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I interrupted it, so I'm sorry. Yonta Sukonta Aramas.
Yonta Sukonta Aramas.
Tatanta Jyotir Evaya.
Tata Jyotirevaya.
Yogi Brahma Nirvanam.
Yogi Brahma Nirvanam.
Bhuto Digachati.
Bhuto Digachati. Yonta Sukonta Aramas. Tatanta Jyotirevaya. Sayogi Brahma Nirvanam. Brahma Bhuto Digachati.
Yonta Sukonita Aramas.
Yonta Sukonita Aramas.
Tata Jyoti Evaya.
Tata Jyotirevaya.
Sayogi Brahma Nirvana.
Sayogi Brahma Nirvana.
Brahma Bhuto Digachati.
Brahma Bhuto Digachati.
Anyone else? Yeah. One who. Antaha Shuka. Happy for living. Antaha Arama. Actively enjoy within.
actively enjoying within,
the tongue,
the tongue,
as well as Antaha Jyoti, aiming within, Eva, certainly, Ya, anyone, Sam, he, Yogi, a mystic, Brahma Devana, liberation in the Supreme, Brahma Bhuta, being self-realized, Adigachati, attained. Translation by His Venerable Srila Prabhupada Ki. One whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains the Supreme. Maybe you can say in response, one whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains the Supreme. Thought. Unless one is able to relish happiness from within, how can one retire from the external engagements meant for deriving superficial happiness? A liberated person enjoys happiness by factual experience. He can therefore sit silently at any place and enjoy the activities of life from within. Such a liberated person no longer desires external material happiness. This state is called Brahma-bhuta, attaining which one is assured of going back to Godhead, back to home. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthana Bhaktara Shri Bhakti Devi Gauram Pachani Shri Krishna Charani Prabhuvidam Shri Shadgora Bhaktarana Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. So one whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains the Supreme. So everyone is looking for happiness. Nobody is looking for distress. Isn't it?
Are we doing the purple?
Yeah, we finished the purple.
Sorry.
It's a really small purple.
Sorry. I'm getting into trouble. Sorry,
Yeah.
I thought you had done.
Yeah. The purple is unless one is able to relish happiness from within. So how can we retire from external engagements which are meant for deriving superficial happiness? So ultimately everybody is looking for happiness. You know, nobody's looking for distress. Is anyone looking for distress down here?
No.
No? So some of the things we do, it's all about survival, right? So we're eating, we're drinking, we're sleeping, and so on. That's all about basic things everybody knows about. But what about the other things we do? Think about it. We don't just survive, do we? Most of the actions and activities we perform in our lives are but attempts to achieve happiness. Sometimes people are not happy to eat the same food every day, are they? Like who likes to eat the same food every day?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, you know. But ultimately we look for happiness in palatable dishes. Like normal people, they like palatable dishes. That's one way of being happy. They're happy to have a variety of food. Food makes them happy. Sometimes we're not satisfied to eat in the same place. So we say, let's go and have dinner in a 5-star restaurant. Take a few pictures, put it on Facebook. Show people what we did, get the praises and the wows. And that's one way of being happy. We want recognition, we want name, we want fame. You know, but where does happiness lie? Yeah, can we think of some daily activities that we do to make us happy?
Work.
Work makes you happy?
No, I mean making money.
Making money makes you happy, makes people happy. What else? going to the beach on a sunny day, maybe traveling by air instead of traveling by bus, playing games, PlayStation, Xbox, yeah, having a bigger house, shopping. Yes, the majority of people find happiness in shopping. You know, having more money, winning the lottery. This makes people happy. They say, I'd be happy if I win the lottery. You know, some people are happy with their status, and others are happy with their achievements. In short, in this society we're living in, it's a bit like get a high level of education, rake in the big bucks, marry your mother, maybe two, travel the world, buy a mansion with a jacuzzi, and have the world respect you. That is like attaining the pinnacle of a stereotype success. This is who we see as a successful man, isn't it? That's what society makes us believe. You see, and unfortunately, most people are made to wear blinkers. Everyone knows what blinkers are? Normally horses wear them, so they can see straight forward. They can't look on the sides and they can't look at the back. So most people are made to wear blinkers through the conditioning that they've had since birth. And this idea of success has been imprinted in our subconscious mind. Every day we see all these adverts, carriers, television, newspapers, they all glamorize a certain kind of lifestyle. And this establishes the boundaries of a successful and a happy man. We all think that the celebrities we see on television, we all think they are very happy and they are living the perfect life. They are living the diamond life. Isn't it?
No. I know what you're saying, yeah.
Actually, none of them are free. They're always surrounded by paparazzis. And they crave for privacy. Even they can't find permanent happiness. And they've got everything materially. They've got all the money, they've got everything. Big houses, big cars, security. They've got people jumping on them, wanting autographs. But they're not happy. Lots of them actually suffer from depression. They suffer from stress. You know, because of the carrier. They can't handle it. See? So in this search of happiness, another thing that happens is that we are all in competition against each other since a very early age. We are made to compete against each other. Right? It starts at school. What do we have to do at school? What's the purpose of school?
As exams do, your SATs known
exams,
from
SATs.
a very early age.
Okay, what about the exams?
Yeah, you've got to get high grades.
High grades, so you have to top it up.
Yeah.
So even then, you're in competition. We're actually in competition, even at school. We're competing against each other to get a better university. So say for example, you need a specific set of results to be able to get one university. There's competition for that. So some of them will get it, others won't get it. So they compete against each other to get that. You know, and then there's competition for a job. So they've turned life itself into a competition. You see, we have to outrun each other. Like if we face reality, how many working people are there in this room? 1, 2, everybody works, right? So everyone's been on an interview, isn't it? So what about the guy sitting next to us? Honestly, we're sitting in this room, waiting to be interviewed, and there's another guy sitting next to us, yeah? Are we really thinking like, hey mate, look, I wish you the best of luck. I really hope you get this job. And it doesn't matter, I can go back home empty-handed. Are we thinking this way? Really? Honestly? Or is it more like, oh my God, how many of them are there? Do I stand a chance? I really hope it all goes wrong for him and I get this job. We might even do a little prayer for his downfall, innit? We might say, oh God, please, I deserve it. This guy, he doesn't deserve it. I don't even know him. I should get the job. That's what we would think. So gradually, it is like what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in his song, Amar Jivana. He says, it's the second verse, I won't do the whole song, but it's the second and the third verse. The second verse goes like Nijashukaragi Tapena Idori Dayaena Sratapano Parasuke Duke Saname Chabashe Paraduka Sukakano. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings this song. He says, I have never hesitated to perform sinful acts for my own enjoyment, devoid of all compassion, concerned only with my own selfish interests. I am remorseful seeing others happy. I am a perpetual liar, and the miseries of others is a great source of pleasure for me. The material desires within the core of my heart are unlimited. I am wrathful, devoted to false pride and arrogance, intoxicated by vanity, and bewildered by worldly affairs. Envy and egotism are the ornaments I wear. So it is true, sometimes we are happy to see others suffer, even without realizing it. That is a source of happiness too. So we spoke about everything, what makes us happy: money, work, good job, good wife, big house, big car, all these things make us happy, shopping. But now we can see that some people are happy, even by seeing other people suffer. You see? And sometimes we say, oh, we see someone in a bad situation, and we might say, oh, he totally deserves it. Does it not happen? Has everybody seen this situation in real life? But if you remember all these things, what make people happy? They all have one thing in common. Can anybody tell me what we have in common? All the things that people do to achieve happiness. Desire. But another thing is that all these sources of happiness, they are temporary, which means that they fade out in time. Like we go shopping, we buy a new pair of shoes, we buy a new mobile phone, it makes us happy for a few days. But then we need more. We need something different. We need to do something else. You see, we visit a few places. Every Sunday we go to the same place, and eventually we get bored of that place. And we're like, we need to do something new. I need to go to another country. We're always unsatisfied. See, and this is a process that is called Bhog and Tyaga. Tyaga, Bhog, it comes from the mind. And the dynamics of Bhog and Tyaga are that we desire one thing, and when we attain it, then we don't care about it anymore, and we want to give it up. So it's like up and down, attachment, detachment. That's what goes on in the mind. And what happens is afterwards we want that same thing again. And when we get it, we want to give it up again. So like this, in our whole life, in every situation we are in, we always think of another situation constantly. Even we're here, and we're probably thinking, hey, I want to get home, and I want to do this, I want to do that. The mind is always disturbed. It's always traveling. We're always dreaming of something else. But when we attain it, we're still not satisfied. And again, we dream of something else. And this is also called Chanchalam Hi Manaha, the restlessness of the mind. It also means flickering mind. So the mind is always flickering like a candle flame, like a flickering candle flame. It cannot stay in one place. It's always moving here and there. This is the nature of the mind. So because of this, we spend our time creating artificial necessities and wanting things we don't really need for our body, for our mind, what to speak of our consciousness, of our soul. This is our nature. But if we think a bit differently, like say for example, if we start thinking from outside the box as a way of speaking, all these things we're looking for our happiness, right? At the time of death, what are we going to bring with us at the time of death? What do we bring? Say when we leave this body, can we bring money? No, we can't bring money. Property, status, boyfriend, girlfriend, family. It will all be left behind. You know? What can we take with us when we die? Nothing. Nothing material will come with us. We will even leave this body. This body, we will even leave it behind. And can we escape this? There's no escaping. Birth, old age, disease, and death. Ultimately, there's no escape from these things. This material life itself is temporary. And what to speak about material happiness? Right? And now some might say, oh, I want to hear something different. This is not something I want us to talk about. Move on. You know, many people think like that. When you start to talk about these realities, they're like, oh, I don't want to hear anything like that. It's a bit like you're happy to wear the blinkers, you know? And that's all they got. They narrow down their vision voluntarily, you see? And that's all they can see. Sense gratification. Intoxication. You know, and they don't want to look anywhere else. That's their conditionment. They're conditioned to live in this way. You know, that's all life is about to them. You see? And many times when we speak about death, when we speak about spirituality, many people choose to bury their head in the sand. They choose not to think about it. Who wants to think about death? Nobody wants to die, nobody wants to think about it. They think, okay, there's danger coming in the form of a tiger. Let me bury my head in the sand, and maybe it will go away. You know, but that's not how it works. We know there's three types of views, right? There's optimistic, there's realistic, and then there's pessimistic. All of them have their particular values. But this Krishna consciousness is realistic. Good or bad, the truth is there, you know. And one purport of Srimad Bhagavatam 7:13-31, it says that according to the materialistic way of life, if a poor man, after laboring very hard, gets some material profit at the end of his life, he is considered a success, even though he again dies while suffering the threefold miseries, Adhyatmika, Adidaivika, and Adibautika. Does everyone know? Please, has anyone ever heard of these threefold miseries?
Yeah.
Please?
What's that, sorry?
The threefold miseries?
Is that the ignorance and...
No, basically there's like three types of miseries. There's the first type of miseries is miseries pertaining to the body and the mind. So sometimes our mind puts us in a bad situation. The miseries coming from the mind. Oh, I want a bigger house, I want this, I want that. This is not good, this is bad, this and that. From the mind. That's from the one misery from the mind. The second type of miseries comes from other living entities. Comes from the society, community. You know, you might get bitten by a dog, you might get bitten by a mosquito. These miseries come from other living entities. And the third type of miseries, it comes from natural calamities, like cyclones, hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, and all these things. Recently we've been hearing a lot about that. Even, is that one coming now? Brian, is it? Storm, Brian? Is it on Saturday? Is it due in on Saturday?
Must be a British one or near my
So, these are the three types of miseries, you see. And miseries, it says that if one works very hard, suffering these threefold miseries, and is successful in getting a small benefit, then what is the value of this benefit? You know, so we've been suffering all these miseries, right? Miseries from the mind, miseries coming from other living entities, miseries coming from natural calamities. We've suffered these miseries, we've suffered birth, disease, old age and death. And then even though we did that, we managed to accumulate a little bit of wealth. But at the time of death, what is the value of this benefit? Does it have a lot of value? It doesn't have a lot of value. And it says, besides that, even if a karma is successful in accumulating some material wealth, he still cannot enjoy it, for he must die in bereavement. That's from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is the end of the road in the search of material happiness. It's a bit like a dead end. Like all rivers ultimately merge in the sea. So eventually all these material things, they wither and they become just like dust in the wind. So we can say that this material happiness is basically like an illusion. It is an illusion. We're constantly thinking, this will make me happy, that will make me happy. And we're like in a desert, chasing a mirage in a desert. That's exactly how chasing after material happiness is in this material world. You know? So we think, how can we be happy? Can we actually be happy? Is there like inner spiritual happiness? If it's real, where is it? So like the verse said, in the verse in the purple, it says, one whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains the Supreme. Unless one is able to relish happiness from within, how can one retire from external engagements meant for deriving superficial happiness? A liberated person enjoys happiness by factual experience. He can therefore sit silently at any place and enjoy the activities of life from within. Such a liberated person no longer desires external material happiness. This state is called Brahma-bhuta, attaining which one is assured of going back to Godhead, back home. So real happiness, spiritual happiness, is from within. From within, why? Because our real self. Who are we? Our real self. We have a soul, right?
Yeah.
And what's the nature of the soul?
To serve Krishna.
To serve Krishna. The soul is Satchit and Ananda. It's eternal, it's full of knowledge, and full of bliss. So experiencing spiritual happiness means that we can give up on this material happiness. It's like experiencing a higher taste. For example, what's the name of the little boy? Froggy. So do you buy small little toy cars for him? Yeah. So right now he's fascinated by this.
Every day he wants one.
Every day he wants one, huh? But when he grows up, say for example he's 19, 20 years old, this small car doesn't fascinate him anymore. He wants the real thing. He wants to drive a Ferrari, he wants to drive a real car. So in that way, he got the higher taste. So if you tell him, look, I'm going to give you a small little toy car in exchange for your real car, he would never accept it. Right? He would never accept this. In a similar way, if someone, say for example, if you have $1,000 and someone comes to you with $10 and he says, hey, let me swap this $10 for your $1,000, of course you would say no, because you got something of more value. So in a similar way, once we experience spiritual happiness, then we become disentangled, we become detached from material happiness. We don't want to experience this material happiness anymore, because we got a higher taste. We got something much better. You wouldn't swap gold for iron, would you? So that's how it is. And how to attain this spiritual happiness. You know? So we spoke of why we chase this material happiness. We have seen that our artificial needs, making us think that we will attain happiness, it comes from the uncontrolled mind. Bhog, Jaga, Chanchalam Hidimanaha. We spoke about this if you still remember. Spoke about the flickering mind. So in one way, if we control the mind, it means we can control these desires for temporary or illusory happiness. We can control that by controlling the mind. And the purport of the Bhagavad Gita, 6.34, Krishna speaks to Arjuna. And he says, the mind is so strong and obstinate that it sometimes overcomes the intelligence, although the mind is supposed to be subservient to the intelligence. For a man in the practical world who has to fight so many opposing elements, it is certainly very difficult to control the mind. Artificially, one may establish a mental equilibrium towards both friend and enemy, but ultimately no worldly man can do so. for this is more difficult than controlling the raging wind. One cannot capture the blowing wind, and it is even more difficult to capture the turbulent mind. The easiest way to control the mind, as suggested by Lord Chaitanya, is by chanting Hare Krishna, the great mantra for deliverance, in all humility. The method prescribed is Savai Manaha, Krishna Padara Vindaya. One must engage one's mind fully in Krishna. Only then will there remain no other engagements to attain the mind. So this is how to control the mind. And chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is the sublime method for reviving the human consciousness. It's like cleaning the dust off a mirror. You know? And this mirror is the mirror of our soul, so that our real identity can shine. And this identity is Satchitananda, eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. So when we chant the Maha Mantra, it's like regardless of the external weather, whether it's shining or whether it's lashing down, we can still build our own weather from inside, and we can still be happy. So this is why we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And today is also a very special day. Today is actually the appearance day of Giriraj, Govardhan Hill. And yesterday was Diwali. And today is referred to as Anakuta or Govardhan Puja. And I will just read a short story just to glorify this day. It says, on this day, the inhabitants of Vrindavan would hold a harvest festival in honor of King Indra, the demigod who provided the rains essential for the harvest. One day, however, Lord Krishna wanted to teach Indra a lesson. He convinced the inhabitants of Vrindavan to honor Govardhan Hill instead, whose fertile soil provided the grass upon which the cows and the bulls grazed, and to honor the cows and the bulls who provided milk and plowed the lands. So outraged, Indra retaliated with terrifying thunderstorms. What's the name of the cloud he sent? Sambartaka. So when this happened, it was raining heavily, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, he calmly lifted Govardhan Hill with a little finger of his left hand, with one little finger, he lifted the whole hill. And he stayed like that for 7 days and 7 nights, and he held up Govardhan Hill, providing a giant umbrella to shelter the inhabitants of Vrindavan from the torrential rain. Realizing the futility of his actions, King Indra bowed down to the Lord with folded hands and offered prayers of supplication. In this way, Lord Krishna demonstrated that he is Deva Deva, the Lord of the demigods, and that any purpose for which demigods might be worshipped could easily be served by worshipping him, the cause of all causes. We get it right? Hey!
Jai!
Okay, I'm going to close on this. So if there's any reflections or any questions or anything I might have missed out during the lecture, if anyone would like to add something on top, please feel welcome. Yes, for you.
Thank you for a very nice class. In the book, what Srila Prabhupada says that a liberated person can sit silently at any place and enjoy the activities of life from within. So what are the activities of life from within?
What activity of life, the purpose of this life?
No, what are the activities? He says that one can sit silently and enjoy the activities. So what are the activities of the life?
So activity of life, initially a whole thing in devotional service.
No, I don't mean that. I mean here, when he said from a liberated person's point of view, that's I know. We derive happiness because we chant Hare Krishna, and that purifies the mind. So what about a liberated person? You know, where he says someone's sitting silent, so he's not chanting Hare Krishna. He's a mystic. He's sitting silently in someone else, but he's enjoying activities. So what are those? I'm just wondering, what are those activities?
So is it a connection with the super soul? If he's a mystic, that's the kind of yoga that we do. so they meditate inwards towards the super soul. So it would be a different process, like, to be honest, we are not
No, okay, I don't want to make it awkward, but it's just that we understand from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, for example, that the Goswamis, for example, although they were engaged externally in performing sadhana bhakti, internally they were situated in the spiritual world, and they were engaged in pastimes with Radha and Krishna. As you say here, it seems to refer to mystic yogis who, you understand what activities would they be within, because generally they perceive the super soul, but they're not necessarily engaged in devotional service like that. They perceive the super soul. So to me, it's kind of a bit confusing here. I don't know if anybody else.
Does he not mean like you just got to sit in the service to do not?
Yeah, exactly. But here it says the activities within. So what are they?
But the activities, nothing.
No. That's no, because the soul is always active. The soul is. Prabhu earlier on was saying that when we understand that we're not this body, that the happiness doesn't come from it, but it comes from the soul. And Prabhupada says the soul is always active. The soul doesn't do nothing. The soul is always active in something or other. So, we understand, say, from the realized devotees, that they engage in devotional service internally, on the platform of the soul.
If the soul is active, is it happy? Is it happiness?
Yeah, well, for us, we gain a certain amount of happiness because of our external activities and because of the purification of the mind, right? We're not so interested in external happiness, activities which give us external happiness. We're not concerned with those. We're concerned with activities, but our activities, we perform them externally, So eventually, the activities become internal. They become on the platform of the soul. And I think this is what it's getting at here. Although it talks about mystic yogis, but generally they may be happy within, but they don't necessarily perform devotional service. They still have to go to a high level.
Because it also says such a liberated person no longer desires external material happiness.
No, he doesn't. No,
so he's completely free from
there
this
still has to be
bondage.
some activity, obviously.
And he's shooting going back to Godhead. But I also know that even the Nitya Siddhas, like Yashoda Mata, and even the gopis, they're still chanting. They still chant the holy name.
No, they're devotion. They're devotees, and they also perform devotional service in the same way that they would do in the spiritual world. The Goswamis were different in that they're not in Krishna's pastimes externally. They hear and chant. They do what we do. They hear and chant, but on the spiritual level, internally, they're engaged. They're in the spiritual realm.
I heard one pastime where one of them went into deep meditation for about 2 weeks, and then his disciple had to go and get him because we were really worried about him. And it turns out his body was here, but he was in a pastime with Srimati Radharani. She lost her nose ring.
This is the Shamananda.
Yeah.
This is the example I was going to give. Yeah. So they can withdraw, or it's understood that they're always situated in transcendence, and they're visualizing the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and they actually take part in those pastimes. And so here, for me, mystic yogis, although they get happiness within, I can't understand what the activities are within.
Well, usually mystic yogis involved in mystic activities, so traveling through this, through different planets and all these kind of. That's the only idea I can.
That's if you're talking about astral travel. If you're talking about astral travel, but that's the astral travel isn't on the spiritual platform. It's on the subtle platform, with the subtle body. So I understand your point like that, but I don't think that's what they're getting at here. I'll talk to Jitendra.
Does it mean, you mentioned last week about the performed austerities. No, is that not the action? Is that not what it's all about?
Well, the point is that austerity generally means that you refrain from certain things.
It's
isn't
like
it?
fasting, meditation.
Yeah, exactly. So their external activities, they pertain to the body, and they have an effect on the consciousness, right? They have an effect on our consciousness, but they're not internal activities. That's the point I'm making. That's all. We'll talk to Chaitanya afterwards.
Might clear some of the
I
doubts.
think I'm being a bit of a nuisance.
It was only a little purple for a ball
So I think that is referring to happiness from the Brahma Buddha stage.
Yeah. I mean, you have Brahma Bruta Prasanatma, that verse. It says that in the Sochiti and the Conchiti, that there is no hankering or lamenting. So as you progress in Krishna consciousness, you aren't so concerned about external circumstances, that's all. But the point I was making was activities on the platform of the soul.
There's one thing you need to put light on. Sorry? There's one thing you need to put light on. There's one thing.
It says, a liberated person enjoys happiness by factual experience. He can therefore sit silently at any place and enjoy the activities of life from within.
I was asking what are the activities from within?
So which activities does he enjoy from within?
Then what is that? What are the activities? Because they were talking about a mystic yogi, and generally mystic yogis, in their perfection is to perceive the super soul. But
well, as far as I know, I mean, in the context of this chapter, which is chapter 5, which is Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness, so it's about doing external work, or this is, I mean, as far as I understand it, then it means, meditating upon Krishna, not necessarily like a yogi, but, chanting, reading. There's one verse where it says that those who have become accomplished in devotional service enjoy this knowledge within themselves in due course of time.
Yeah.
My understanding is that it's kind of the opposite of finding happiness externally, which is kind of sensual, and more that it's the internal happiness, meaning your relationship with Krishna. But exactly what those activities are.
Because I was making a point that the Goswamis, some of them, it appeared that they were externally performing sadhana bhakti, but internally they were devotion pastimes in Radha and Krishna. So it seemed to be that kind of activities, their spiritual activities. As you say, for us, our happiness comes from the process of hearing and chanting, and it has an effect on our consciousness in terms of not wanting external happiness and relishing internal happiness.
Yeah.
So,
I also read the other day in the Nectar of Devotion how devotional service can be performed within the mind, and there was the story of one Brahmin who was poor, but he was a pure devotee, and he made some sweet rice within his mind, and sweet rice should be offered cold. So in his meditation, he touched the pot of sweet rice to see if it was hot, and he burnt his finger on the pot within his meditation. But then when he came out of his meditation, he saw that he actually had a burn mark on his finger. And then Lord Narayan noticed this in Vaikuntha, and then they sent a flower airplane and they brought it back to
I was also thinking that our nature, our constitutional position, it's like our constitutional position is to be the servant of Krishna. So if that's our constitutional position, what other activities could there be apart from devotional service? If every living entity is a servant of Krishna, then it's a bit like all converging to the same activity, devotional service. So, but like you said, it's interesting to know it can be done internally rather than externally. So it's amazing. Thank you for your feedback. There's nothing Newcastle, you can move to the next part of the program,
Yeah.
which is...
International Pilot Society.
Ja.